Hello, welcome back to the L1 show, Links with Friends. Today's January 24th, and I immediately forgot the sections we're doing.
I can see how you would, because it's only the same every week.
Yeah.
Government and security. It does change sometimes.
It does,
It's always
yeah.
government.
Sometimes there's not a lot of government stories.
Sometimes not. This week we do have a fair amount, and most of them are, here's a shock, your rights being trampled.
U.S. law enforcement has warrantless access to many money transfers. A low-profile surveillance program is raising major privacy concerns. This is something that has already been going on. We told you this has been happening for years. And it's funny because the article mentions how they weed out transactions that are less than $500 because there was too much noise in the signal-to-noise ratio from randos sending money home.
This is outside of the banking system, so Western Union, Venmo, all that, direct money
Cash
to money
app.
stuff.
Yeah.
If that goes across the border, and even sometimes if it doesn't, it all gets hoovered up into this one big thing, and law enforcement has open access to that.
No warrant needed. Just it's like, hey, search this guy's name and see if he sends money overseas. Yep, he does.
And Mexico, you might think, well, that's some cartel stuff. Some other places in South America, okay, maybe. Canada? So.
They're getting contacts from Canada.
Well, I mean, in fairness, El Chapo did tweet at the Mexican president, like, please save me.
SOS.
And when it comes to violating our rights with surveillance, it's nothing new, of course. Been going on since God knows when.
the 80s.
The creation of the alphabet agencies.
As long as I've been alive.
At least. Oh, far more than that. But it got a real shot in the arm right around 2001. And everything was given the label of, why are we doing this? Why are you trampling our rights? It's because of terror. Now, the specter of terror has faded. So we can assume that all those programs have come to their sunset, correct?
The NSA director urges Congress to renew controversial intelligence authority. It's funny, the testimony. He's like, we're saving American people. This is really amazing. I would just like to say that, if the NSA were doing this competently, they would have been in a position to thwart things like the Juniper hacks and the Cisco hacks and the OPM hack, where the Office of Personnel Management lost a bunch of stuff. Some of these ransomware attacks that have shut down, like parts of the airline industry. If the NSA really was actually doing anything other than after the fact surveillance on this kind of stuff, then wouldn't we have had early warning of those kinds of things?
For the airline thing, wasn't that also them not upgrading their stuff for years, even though their tech people begged?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if we should expect the NSA to have a hand in that, although they probably monitor it.
Well, if the NSA showed up to tell your CTO, hey, you need to upgrade your stuff because you're being targeted by hackers, do you think that they would?
I don't think the NSA would do that because I don't think they're paying attention to that. The thing about it is, this was all about terror. This was about, the Middle East mostly, in 2004 when it was created. But now there's no mention of that, obviously, because that's not the thing anymore. Now it's all about ransomware. Amazingly, they didn't mention Russia.
It's weird.
You think that would be an easy one, but they didn't mention it.
It's just a slam dunk.
Or Iran, we've got so many stories in that where you connect the dots. So you need to remember this story because we're going to refer back to it, especially in the business section, because it's like, wait a minute. That guy was talking about ransomware, and here's an example of where they failed catastrophically to prevent anything remotely useful with ransomware.
But you can't mention Iran because that would remind people, hey, that's the reason you created this thing. You got to make them think that it was always about ransomware. We've always been at war with Oceania. And the Federal Election Committee has finally gotten to the bottom of all that election nonsense that went on. Turns out there wasn't any.
The Federal Election Commission dismisses the RNC complaint that Google spam filters were biased against conservatives, according to CNN Business. Well, go ahead.
Well, they don't say that it didn't happen because it's provably true that it did happen. Their argument is it was a business decision, not a political decision.
Here's another thing to put in your noodle. What if it was just conservative websites are just poorly designed and optimized, and that's why Google penalized them?
No, this was emails.
Oh.
And don't put things in my noodle.
Oh, I'll put things in your noodle.
And the Supreme Court has some big things playing out soon. Man, I imagine we're going to see a full court press from all the various entities trying to push one direction or the other here. Get ready for an onslaught of propaganda.
Supreme Court poised to reconsider key tenets of online speech. This is Section 230 protections and or lack thereof and or changes to Section 230 for, it's like if Facebook undertakes any sort of moderation of things posted, does that take away their Section 230 protection against crap that users post?
And can the tech CEOs be held accountable for what's posted on their sites?
Yeah. I'm honestly surprised we're not seeing more leverage of the children to bring forth the argument one way or the other, because, tech CEO should be responsible for what our children are exposed to on Facebook. And it's like, well, we literally give people PTSD from reviewing that content. Are you sure about that?
Well, Google has skipped over the protect the children stuff, and they've gone straight to the apocalyptic scenarios for what might happen here.
Google warns the Supreme Court that it could upend the internet through Section 230 changes. Yeah.
It would certainly reduce Google's power over the internet. Although, unfortunately, it would probably screw people like us as well.
Yeah, so all I'm thinking about is the forum, and it's like, well, we have to get rid of the forum if it gets worse.
It's it is a little bit ambiguous. You remember the API thing? It's like, the API is copyrightable. And it's like that one was really close. And like the VCR, historically, the Supreme Court almost decided that the VCR was illegal. Like it was
because it can record stuff off TV.
It was a tiny, tiny thread that the VCR is legal, and it's not good that things are that split because it seems obvious that it shouldn't be.
But their treatment of torrent sites is just the modern day interpretation of that.
Yeah.
It just doesn't affect as many people because we have technology that lets you get around it by paying.
It is really terrifying.
And the wheels of justice, oh boy, do they turn slowly, because this is a blast from the past. If you recall, the big, it was an arson case. Google did the geofencing. What do they call it?
I think geofencing.
Was it geofencing? Where they just get a warrant for everybody who had been in the area, and then a warrant for everybody who had Googled the address of the area. If you just didn't know where a place was and you looked it up, you went on this list. Those cases are finally in court.
Google keyword search warrants questioned by Colorado lawyers. It is sort of an interesting defense. Like, okay, is that enough to get probable cause? Is that enough to elicit suspicion?
That tree seems pretty poisonous to me.
Man, who doesn't just spend time on Google Maps looking around?
I mean, if I have to go to a place,
Oh yeah,
I think it was, what was it, a theater or something? It was a public place.
Yeah.
So, and Wyoming, they just did this for the headline.
This is a troll.
I mean, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Wyoming wants to phase out sales of new electric vehicles by 2035.
All 12 residents.
They're just trolling. It's just a troll.
I think this is what is wrong with our country right now, is that instead of saying, stop telling us what to do, our leaders go for, no, we're going to tell you what to do just based on the stuff we like. So it's like, no, you can't stop us from doing this thing. We'll stop you from doing that thing. It's like, no, guys, that's not the direction. It's not where we want to be. And here's a shocker of a headline. If you're not sitting down, you might want to start, because who could have predicted this?
Amazon fined by regulators for unsafe warehouse work conditions. We reported that they would, when they found that the conditions were unsafe and that the warehouses have, 8 or 10 times the national average for sprains and like minor injuries. And they also found that those were systematically underreported because the way that things are structured in the warehouse is those aren't really super well documented a lot of the time.
A laughably small amount, 60 grand.
Yeah. It was very low.
Now, here's the most terrifying thing. This was OSHA, by the way, coming after him. But here's the most terrifying thing that I was not aware of. Maybe you guys were. AmCare. Amazon has like a little triage center that they run. And if you get injured, you have to go to AmCare. And per AmCare policy, you have to wait 3 weeks before going to an actual doctor to try to give the thing time to clear up.
The first part of that, I was like, Well, it's not too bad. Most people have like a emergency kit on site, and then it's 3 weeks before you see an actual doctor. It's like, oh, there's the dystopia.
But they also accuse them of being sort of like, sports doctors. Where it's
Right.
like, no, you're fine.
Yeah. You
Get
go
back
back
out on
to
that
work. Yeah.
Don't worry about collapsing from a heart attack. It's totally okay.
Everything's good. Get back to packing those boxes.
Right.
So, 60 grand. Amazon looks at that and they're like, make it worse.
Listen, we brought you back on the field with a defibrillator. I mean, what more do you want?
Yeah, 60K is just a slap on the wrist. They're going to keep doing it.
And the Justice Department has more accusations and charges to hand out to, guess who? Cryptocurrency firms.
Founder and majority of owner Bitzlato, a cryptocurrency exchange, charged with unlicensed money transmitting. And you read this article and you think, wow, this sounds really bad. And then you realize that you could search and replace Bitzlato for PayPal, for example, and all of this would apply to PayPal.
Well, this guy he did some dumb stuff, as they always do. One of the things he did was admitted in an internal chat, that a huge portion of the business was illegal.
I think in the beginning, PayPal people would have said that. I'm pretty sure Elon Musk is on record as having said that.
What about Wells Fargo?
HSBC is like, yeah, we're the bank of the cartels. So they know. And
a lot of this apocalyptic stuff from Google is because not just the US is going after them this week, the UK as well. And the UK has gone considerably further with their reach.
UK lawmakers vote to jail tech executives who fail to protect their kids online. Can we also jail IKEA? Because the corners of their coffee tables are real sharp, and I'm sure we can find at least one child injury in the UK where a kid fell into the corner of a coffee table and got hurt real bad.
What does it say about your culture if you expect tech executive to protect your children? I don't think that's their job. Maybe you need to take a bigger hand in that. You created those little monsters.
I mean, if I were raising children and I felt that I was that incompetent, I would probably abstain from having computers at home. It's like, well, the family business is knife juggling. Maybe I got to put that on hold for a while to raise the kid.
Snake handling.
Yeah.
And all the big tech companies, of course, are equally terrified by this, because if you have a tech company where something is online that you could be blamed for and you might have to go to jail, but you got to do everything you can to stop that, right?
Wikipedia is even on board criticizing these harsh new online safety bill plans.
Well, Wikipedia has some articles about some dark historical events. I could see them being like, ooh,
Yeah.
that could catch us.
Plus, people edit it. It's constantly being edited. So how do you police all of that? It is a crazy plan.
Yeah.
Let's
Right.
admit.
But the goal is to come up with something completely insane everybody can agree is completely insane, and when they dial it back just a click,
Everyone's like, oh, that's more sane.
it is a classic psychological manipulation technique. Why are not more people immune to it at this point? Because it happens with everything.
Also, when the next bad thing happens and people complain, the politicians can be like, we tried. Look what we did.
IKEA came out with a new popular coffee table that really is just bad news for children's foreheads.
The first draft of the IKEA table is just covered in spikes. And then they were like, everyone gets angry and they're like, well, we'll do one with just sharp corners.
Can you imagine the UK law? It's like only coffee tables are only permitted to have at most 6 spikes.
Yeah.
We have a new line that's based on the Iron Throne. All swords. And the Pirate Bay, this goes back to your comment about VCRs, because this is just that's the same level of insanity, because the rule is if you link to content that has a copyright. But what if you link to content that links to content that has a copyright? Or link to content that links to content that links to content? How many degrees of separation? And it seems like any amount is too many.
A police complaint from the City of London Police has removed a Pirate Bay proxy portal from GitHub. So this wasn't a link to the Pirate Bay or even a link to proxies for the Pirate Bay. It was a tool and a link for a thing that finds the proxies to the Pirate Bay based on what your DNS blocking is or what other stuff is. And so this is not super far. This is maybe one click closer, would you say, than YouTube download to whatever the wall of piracy is?
Maybe, yeah, about the same, I'd say.
Yeah. So it's removed, and it only took a complaint. The City of London police were like, "We don't think this should be here." GitHub said, "Nah, whatever, don't care."
Agree totally. Those people are evil. And the old Microsoft Activision deal, I think it's dead.
Yeah.
But Microsoft will not accept it, and they keep fighting, and they keep getting pushed back.
They're going through the stages of grief right now.
Reuters has the headline: Microsoft faces EU antitrust warning over Activision deal, according to sources. Now, this was written before the Microsoft layoffs, but the EU today is already using the Microsoft layoffs, which we'll talk about in the business section, to go back to this and say, see, we told you.
If you've got extra money,
Yeah.
what stage did you say they're in right now?
I would say bargaining right now. Yeah.
They are bargaining hard, aren't they?
Yeah.
And the EU is warning the social media companies, one in particular, which they suspect might not comply with this crazy new scheme.
out. Yeah, the EU's Breton has warned TikTok's CEO, you need to comply with the new digital rules. These are the EU rules, about EU citizen data staying in the EU and privacy policy and blah, blah, blah. Because they think maybe TikTok is not adhering to those rules.
I say, how can TikTok possibly keep EU data in the EU? Because they obviously report it back to China.
They've admitted
Yeah.
that even if they don't store it in China, there are Chinese with access to it,
Yeah.
which is a violation. So, and India, we've seen they have been pushing back really hard against the tech companies,
This was so funny.
and their policy goes even farther than the U.S. or the EU. They're taking this very seriously.
India proposes social media firms rely on fact checking by government agencies. So I didn't read the TechCrunch article on this. I read another article
Yeah.
that I think was in the Indian language first translated to English, and it seemed to be the translation seemed to be saying, the reporter seemed to be saying that the argument in front of lawmakers was somebody asked facetiously, like, "What do you expect us to do? Like, who's going to do the fact checking? Have you not considered that?" And the lawmaker people on the debate floor earnestly were like, "Well, maybe we should check that also." So they were just like completely, they had no
No actual
introspection.
plan. Yeah.
They like the idea of, it's like, yeah, we should be in charge of everything. And they like the idea of being in charge so much that they're willing to buck up against these tech companies. And when Google started to come into India, India was like, yeah, we could probably have Android, but here's the thing. You're going to have to take all your Google software off of it. And Google was like, no. That's impossible. But we're about to find out whether it is or not.
India's top court rejects Google's plea to block Android antitrust ruling in a major blow. So, like you said, it's basically just give us Android, a mobile phone operating system, without all of the Google stuff. Google said, we can't do that.
You could still install the Google stuff.
Google's argument was basically, hey, Apple is bigger than us in mobile. We should be able to do what we want.
Talk about whataboutism.
Yeah.
You just ignore the topic completely and point your finger at somebody else.
Yeah.
But that's how you do things in 2023, right?
Meanwhile, Android continues to get worse.
And Google has said the same kind of incendiary topics. They just copy pasted this memo the entire week and just send it to different press releases about different countries.
Google says India antitrust order poses a threat to national security. Because what are you going to do? Go get Huawei's OS?
If you can't have Gmail, then the communists have won. And China seems to be sort of realizing all of the sudden the demographic and financial quagmire that they've found themselves in. And they're just reversing course on all these policies with no warning whatsoever.
China lifts ban on Marvel movies. It sets release date for Black Panther 2, Ant-Man, and the Wasp: Quantumania. This Variety article fails to mention that the reason that Black Panther 2 was blocked is racism in China, which is sort of...
Was it?
Yeah. Sort of dark.
Why'd they go after Ant-Man?
Well, because, Western, whatever. But they're gonna release the one and then the other one. Finally,
Yeah,
basically at the same time.
I think they need income.
Yeah.
Any kind of income. First of all,
or distraction.
yeah, get any kind of taxable income that we can get and get people out there back in the economy, spending money. somewhere.
Yeah. Bread and circuses, right?
And this might be one of the big reasons why, because this is a serious problem for an economy that's built on cheap labor.
China's population drops for the first time in decades. I think we first reported on this. What was it, like October, November last year? The report that this is usually obvious in. It wasn't obvious. And this may have been happening for the last couple of years, and they just sort of fudged the numbers a little bit. But now it's rough.
A lot of people believe that these numbers are also fudged, and it's way worse than they're letting on, which wouldn't be shocking. Mailchimp caused me a lot of headache a couple of weeks ago. Boy, that was annoying. The whole thing just shut down. Maybe now we know why.
Mailchimp says it was hacked again. They got a lot of credentials and API keys and a lot of bad things. It's great. It's fabulous. Good job.
Annoying if you have to deal with it.
They got in, but they only hacked about 100 accounts. Obviously, they knew what big players to go after. So WooCommerce, they got everything that WooCommerce had.
Oh, that sounds like a WordPress connected thing. Oh,
It
no.
is.
Who could have predicted that something connected to the WordPress economy was a vast disaster of security?
A WordPress plugin.
Oh, no.
And CircleCI, we heard about their hack, but we didn't know how bad it really was. Now we do.
CircleCI says hackers stole encryption keys and customers' secrets. As, you know, we foreshadowed when this was first reported because people were already reporting strange things with their Amazon keys. So if you use CircleCI, you need to go reset all your crap.
Actually, it's probably a little too late for that.
You'd be surprised how many people don't bother to learn how to keep secrets out of the Git repo. And they're just like, oh, it's a private repo. Not everybody can access the Git repository, so I can put secrets in it. No, don't do that.
They got that new AI that's supposed to help with that because it's so common.
That's GitHub.
Well, I mean,
No one else has it.
I'm sure it's coming soon to everybody else. And NortonLifeLock. Well, that's a valuable service, right? That'll keep your password safe.
NortonLifeLock warns that hackers have breached their password manager accounts. They looked at what happened with LastPass and were like, oh no, guys. Oh.
That's going to happen to us. Also, they've renamed Symantec has renamed to Gen Digital.
Well, it's because Symantec, is such a bad... They've destroyed their product. It's almost at McAfee levels of insanity, so...
They've destroyed their goodwill, so they're like, we'll just rebrand.
Yeah.
How about the fact that John McAfee was the least bad thing about that brand name? He had higher trust than the brand itself, despite his lifestyle.
Yeah.
That was astonishing.
When's Blizzard going to rebrand?
They need to, right?
Yeah. They've had bad PR all year.
Well, I think they're hoping to just get folded into Microsoft.
Yeah.
Probably not going to happen, though, right?
Or it'll be like Microsoft Blizz. Or Microsoft
Blizz.
BZ.
And T-Mobile also in the breach section this week.
T-Mobile suffers another data breach, this time affecting 37 million accounts. Oh, it was a bad actor. Current, postpaid, and prepaid customer accounts. So they lost everything.
Isn't postpaid and prepaid just a really convoluted way of saying everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the other category there? Unpaid?
The complimentary account.
People who haven't paid their bill didn't get their stuff leaked. So the lesson there is don't pay your bill.
That's the only way to be secure. And this is another kind of blast from the past. I think this happened a while ago, and there was some ransom negotiation, and Gaben stood strong.
Leaker releases Valve assets from repository. A Discord user released various assets from Valve's repository, including games from Half-Life and Team Fortress 2. And it was just stuff that maybe would go into the story, maybe not. I mean, it's a lot of pretty mundane things, in my opinion.
I was imagining like just the error asset, just a folder full of that.
Everybody wants to know how the Half-Life story is going to end, and the reality is there's probably no satisfying ending to that.
Same way Game of Thrones is going to end. I
Yeah.
mean, not the TV show, but the books, the real story.
They're just not going to.
Yeah.
That sword that they talked about in chapter 2 of book 1, it never mattered. Why? Those were just extra words I had to read for no reason, George R. R. Martin.
Danny
Why did
kind
you
of
do
forgot
this?
about the Iron Fleet.
Yeah. Why did this happen?
And you know it's a tough week when Ars Technica uses the exploit
Oh, it's the exact same.
stock image for two stories that are equally bad.
Vulnerability with a 9.8 severity in control web panel is under active exploits. If you use that, you probably want to, probably already too late. Probably time to wipe and reload those servers.
And they were like, nah, I just got to use it again.
More than 4,400 Sophos firewall servers remain vulnerable to critical exploits because people, it's automatic updates is on by default, but a lot of people don't like that because it tends to, like, the firewalls are like, it's 2 o'clock on a Tuesday. It's time to reboot. And so people turn that off and then forget about it. And this is remotely exploitable. So it's real bad.
Also a 9.8, but they dropped the 9.8 here to the sub headline just to give us some variety.
I love this picture because it implies that there's like a touch screen and that's how you find the exploit.
4,400
Just pinch and
firewalls
zoom.
that probably protect an average of at least 10 machines is 44,000 computers in that botnet, which is that's pretty significant.
And if you are, if you hate the whole smart TV thing and you're like, yeah, I'll never mess with that. I'll just get a
dumb TV.
stick or a box. Well, you can't find those anymore. But I'll run my own computer essentially to avoid all of that. Beware of eBay.
Android TV on the box
Amazon.
on
I said
Amazon
eBay.
came from pre-installed with malware. So it's like, I bought it on Amazon. Yeah, it's got malware. This happens surprisingly regularly.
Now, this guy was not using it as a media PC. He was using it for Pi-hole. So he had a lot of vision into what was going out because he was observing that to see what Pi-hole was catching. And it was like, wait a minute. This box is making calls to somewhere. And he looked up those IPs, known malware hubs.
Yeah. A lot of the time too, when you're buying something that's based on Android, it's not uncommon for it to come with the malware on the recovery partition. So even if you reset the device, the malware will live on. The malware comes back.
And here's a pro tip. A lot of people, this industry is really being shaken up. A lot of people looking for jobs. A lot of people pivoting in their careers. But here's a very simple rule that's almost always true. If you get a job and they ask you to pay them, something isn't right.
Potential employees looking for remote work say they've been targeted by scammers offering them fake jobs. They prey on people who are vulnerable. This is not just scammers asking the applicants to pay an application fee, but also people doing identity theft. And so it's like, oh, you need to go to our HR portal and, fill out this thing. You got the job. And it's like, okay, here's my social security number. Here's all my stuff. And then it's like,
I wonder if part of the reason this works is because rental companies can do that.
Yeah.
Where you have to pay an application fee just to even get considered for an apartment. So people are like, oh, I guess you can do that for a job now too.
Well, what they said, so this was a work from home job.
Right.
So the excuse was you needed to buy the equipment and then they would pay you back for it, which doesn't make any sense.
No.
But the craziest thing about it is they wanted $15,000 for the equipment. What kind of home office are you putting together for $15,000?
People do that for, MLM, the multi-level marketing schemes too, where it's like, oh, you have to buy like $5,000 in products and then now you're in.
the scam is literally whatever people find believable, from $15,000 of equipment to just give us enough info we can steal your identity. Whatever people will actually do.
She said, like it was ultra professional, and it was that old scam where they do the LinkedIn thing. It's like, I'm the CTO of X company, and it's like not even close to that. And when she questioned the 15 grand even a little bit, she said he just went insane with anger, which probably is not what your hiring agent will do.
Yeah.
If you ask simple questions, except maybe at Twitter. And we did a story about this quite a while ago, been a couple of years at least. And we're all like, Jesus, I hope that doesn't get any better.
Oh, it got better.
Bad news.
Scientists are getting eerily good at using Wi-Fi to see people through walls in detail. Why? Because your body absorbs 2.4 gigahertz radiation like there's no tomorrow.
The people who demonstrated this kind of just ignored the whole privacy thing.
The ethical consideration of it.
They tried to sell it as like, well, think about what you could do if you had like aging parents and you found out they were on the floor. Wouldn't that be wonderful?
I'm pretty sure that there's at least there's a hotline that is just, you can't even call because all the police departments in the country are trying to call them to buy that to add to their, SWAT vans.
The switchboard is just like melted.
You're so busy trying to see if you could, you didn't stop to think if you should.
Oh, this will be the last time we SWAT an empty house.
Don't think that's ever going away. Even if they could Wi-Fi it, they're still going to want to get in there eventually.
Oh, we got paywalled here.
Oh no, what was that one?
That was the same one I just clicked.
Oh.
I moved the mouse to the edge of the browser and it was like, no, wait.
Come back.
Don't go away. No, we're still here. We're always here.
Kind of a short one today. I didn't expect that.
Yeah, I'd say the government wasn't too terribly long.
Well, you know, put in your final finishing touches on your Devember project. The end of January is rapidly approaching.
I got sick, which you guys know from last week, so I haven't been on the Minecraft server. I need to check it out and start seeing what everyone's been building.
I might have to push the deadline out another week or so into February. I don't know. We'll see.
Sure that they've got a lot of crazy infrastructure going on over there.
I definitely, like, I was playing quite a bit in December, and there was a lot of infrastructure projects. So
Yeah, so much. But fun times. And fun times on the Links with Friends. I don't know. That's not really the name. I don't know what the name is. I'm just...
Bye.